All right, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rud Sports Broadcasting Podcast. This podcast, we have a new sponsor. This is the Till Valhalla Project. The Till Valhalla Project is an important organization. It is an organization that is veteran owned, mission based apparel company specializing in quality products that save veteran lives and honor fallen heroes. At least 20% of net proceeds go towards funding therapy for struggling veterans and making memorial plaques that are surprise delivered to families of fallen heroes. So far, the Till Valhalla Project supporters have helped them donate over $1.3 million to fight veteran suicide and honor 72 fallen heroes every single month, nearly 3,000 in total. By supporting them, you help veterans get the mental health care they deserve and ensure no hero goes forgotten. Check out their website at tillvalhallaproject.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Rudd Sports Broadcasting. We're here. I've got Caleb with me, and we are going to be uh, talking today to you about the Super Bowl, some failed NFC and AFC championship predictions by the two of us, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Major League Baseball spring training, which is just about to get underway as pitchers and catchers report in a week and a half. Caleb, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well here. Uh, Finishing up the men's basketball game on my phone over here, so might be a little distracted for the next 22 and a half seconds, but we're holding a 2 point lead, so but
Okay.
I mean, I've been watching basketball for the past hour, so I'm feeling pretty good.
All right. Good deal. All right. So let's start with the obvious. Okay. You picked the Detroit Lions in the NFC Championship game. And as I told you was going to happen, San Francisco came on top because they have this guy named Christian McCaffrey. So why don't we talk a little bit about the NFC Championship game 2 weeks ago? So uh, the truth is, Detroit, in my opinion, had them on the ropes. Um, so the question becomes: did Detroit beat Detroit, or did San Francisco beat Detroit in the second half? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I talk to both. I have a couple friends and like people I know. One of my teachers is a diehard Lions fan, and I was talking to him, and they said, no matter what happens tonight, this is the best day of my life. And then I talked to a couple of 49ers fans, and they said, if we don't win, I'm gonna die. And I was like, well, there's clearly two different spectrums to this. You have one people who are thankful for just being there, and people who really want to win that game. Um, when it came to the actual game, I mean, Detroit came out firing. And I mean, they didn't necessarily stop it. A few drops in the second half. Um, when really the drops were huge. At least one definite touchdown taken away because of a drop, and a pretty bad and a few other bad drops that could have been like 20, 25-yard gains. Um, so I mean, when it comes to that aspect, you could say that the Lions beat themselves, but that 49ers team is really, really good. And I mean, the Detroit defense, you can't hold them forever. And I mean, um, Detroit had an amazing season and will probably have another NFC Championship run next season. But I mean, when it comes to the actual game, I can't say for sure Detroit beat themselves. a few bad drops did lead to their loss, but ultimately, I think San Francisco was indeed the better team, despite who I picked, and they did come out on top.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. First of all, my first point of disagreement is I don't think that Detroit is going to be the NFC North champions next year. I believe the Minnesota Vikings are going to have something to say about that. Um, because as everybody knows, I am not a card-carrying member of the Kirk Cousins fan club. However, comma, unless the Vikings draft Caleb Williams, uh, Kirk's probably the best option at quarterback for us right now. Uh, so I mean, when you talk about having a guy like Justin Jefferson, you talk about having a guy like uh, you know Jordan Addison at, and then this little guy, this unknown guy at tight end, T.J. Hawkinson. Between that, that's a triple threat on the offense, right? So the question is, without a Brian Flores, if Brian Flores leaves, which is still a possibility, what does the defense do with the talent they have? Like Brian Flores did a great job with the defense this year for the Vikings. Um, so I think that the Vikings, especially if they have a Brian Flores defense, has a chance at dethroning the Detroit Lions. That being said, I wouldn't disagree that, as I said, before we went into the championship games, was that San Francisco was going to beat them. However, it was a lot closer than I expected. They made a game of it. Now, I'm going to turn my attention to the AFC. Caleb, I have to admit that I was wrong. It's hard to admit. There is a part of me that believes that the Baltimore Ravens beat themselves. Zay Flowers' taunting call cost them 15 yards when they were on the 10. Did that cost them the game? Nope. What cost them the game was you're at the half-yard line very early in the fourth quarter in a 3-point game. Maybe it was a 7-point game. I can't remember at that point. But anyway, you dive for the end zone, drop the ball, fumble it into the end zone, give it back to the Chiefs. Next drive, after a defensive stop, Lamar Jackson, who really honestly didn't make a lot of bad decisions this year, all year long, decides to try to make something happen and throw the ball into triple coverage. And that triple coverage resulted in interception in the end zone. So two opportunities. You take those two things back, I think Baltimore wins that game. But all in all, Mahomes' magic comes through. Kelsey, he's got his Swifty fans now, so he's got another fan base to cater to. But at the end of the day, I think that you know, Kansas City versus San Francisco is not what anybody predicted, but I think it's going to be a big matchup. At the end of the day, in Vegas, I think that the 49ers come out on top. I've debated hard and long and hard on this, um, but I think the Niners come out on top. You can't debate Mahomes' magic and their offensive power, but what the difference is, the defense of Kansas City has a hard time with the run. Um, Gus Edwards ran for almost 75 yards on him, and he wasn't even the primary back the entire game. So the run is available to uh, San Francisco, and if you got CMC, he's going to break one. He might break two. So at the end of the day, I think that sets Brock Purdy up for a lot of options in the passing game because they have to respect the running game of Christian McCaffrey. And that is why I believe San Francisco ends up winning this game. My prediction for this game is 41-28.
Uh, I mean, from all you said, I mean, when it comes to the AFC Championship game, and uh, I mean, you talk about the Ravens beating themselves, but what you described seemed like Zay Flowers beating the Ravens. And the reason why I haven't said since it happened 2 weeks ago, the reason why I haven't said the Ravens have beat themselves is because um you like who put like you put the game in the hands of a guy who's played 17 games in the NFL. You put his hand in a guy in like you trust a rookie who, yes, has had an amazing season, not offensive rookie of the year caliber. You have a lot of other players who are better than him in this rookie class offensively, but a solid receiver for the Ravens. Um, no matter how good he was this season, he just didn't have it when it counted. And I feel like you can't really put the game, an entire playoff game, an entire season in the hands of a 21-year-old. And I feel like it's hard to say that the Ravens beat themselves when the person who was in charge of that was Zay Flowers. Um, when it comes to the Super Bowl this coming weekend, I would have to agree with you. I do believe the 49ers will come out on top. I don't believe the 49ers are going to put up 41 points on the second-rated defense in the league. However, it's going to come down to a firepower game. These are two very good defenses and two very good offenses. One offense is definitely better than the other, and San Francisco's is definitely better than Kansas City's. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. I don't think it's going to be a huge score. I do think it's going to be a pretty close game overall. But I do believe that the Niners are going to get their sixth, put them in ranks with the Patriots and the Steelers. And every Patriots and Steelers fan doesn't want them to win. I can guarantee you that because they want to stand alone with six. But I believe the 49ers will grab it this weekend. I'm calling Super Bowl MVP is going to be Christian McCaffrey. He's had a borderline MVP season. It would only make sense for him to take it. And I could see probably like a 35-28 game. I don't see the kickers getting much action in this game. I feel like they're not going to – these teams are barely going to get to the red zone because they're either going to stall out or they're going to score from 50 yards away. There's not going to be much goal line play, which means I don't believe that the kickers are going to get much action. I think it's going to be all touchdowns, 35-28 Niners.
Well, that's an interesting take. I actually, I think what's going to happen is it's going to end up it's going to be a 6-point game. It's going to come down to a touchdown that kind of separates the two teams at the end of the game. That's kind of where I went with my 13-point differential. Um, and you're right. And you're right. It may not be that high scoring. I I feel like both of these teams are willing to take a shot, and they're going to take a shot early. And I think that's why I think there's going to be a higher scoring game because both these, I mean, so Kansas City's been there, right? The Chiefs, they have the experience. Everybody on the team has the experience of playing in the big game. None of these San Francisco 49ers have that experience. Um, and so there's going to be nerves early on for them. And that's why I think early on it's going to turn into a shootout and then it's become a grinding game. And that's why I went with the higher score. Um, but yeah, no, at the end of the day, I think San Francisco comes out on top. I think it's going to be a good game either way. For those who haven't heard, uh, I'm not posting it on my website, but I'm just letting you know that DoorDash is running a uh, promotion. The promotion is if you go on there and you break their codes based off of their ads, and this is the way I understand it, so I'm not advertising per se, but DoorDash has this thing where if you go on to during their during the Super Bowl, you enter codes, and if you break the code, you win everything that is advertised during the Super Bowl, which at a minimum will include 2 BMWs. So, you know, good luck with the taxes that you're going to have to pay on all that stuff, but it's a lot of stuff. So, give it a shot, give it a go. You know, I'm not getting paid to say that. I'm just giving a shameless plug. That's all. So,
Another big thing that I know about Super Bowl weekend is that FanDuel kick of destiny that Gronk decided to miss last year.
that he's
They've
going to
been
miss again. Yes,
showing commercials for so long. I've seen FanDuel actually putting bets out there on whether it's going to be a make or a miss. Um, he barely like that was such a bad miss last year. A 40-yard field goal is not automatic for anyone, and certainly not a retired tight end. Um,
for sure
so
not a retired tight end.
I mean, I don't see Gronk making it, but I do see Gronk kicking until he's like 70 years old or until he makes it.
Well, here's my theory on that. If Gronk makes it, he's coming back next year. He's coming out of retirement next year if he makes it.
to be a
He's going to
kicker.
come back as a kicker for like the Patriots or something. I don't know, but you never know.
Eh,
I don't know.
I'm just saying
I mean, Belichick's not there anymore, so he probably doesn't care. But
he'd be the biggest kicker I've ever seen. I'm just
this
saying.
is true. This is true. True statement. All right. So, hey, so we have an update from SBU.
Yes, we do. Final score I believe was 79-73, St. Bonaventure.
Outstanding.
Uh,
Great job.
yeah, I really just kind of not too smart play towards the end by UMass. A like really bad foul on a rebound gave us free throws to take a 5-point lead, and then they decided, and then we had this really awkward rebound where we kind of just batted the ball down the court and we got more points. We pulled up a 3 in transition, up by 5, but with like 10 seconds left too. But we won by I think 8. But I mean,
Matt Cross is your guy, right?
what
He's your favorite. He's your favorite player there, Matt Cross.
do we even have a player named Matt Cross?
No, Matt Cross is on Mass. I'm sorry, Charles Pride.
Yeah, Charles Pride. Charles Pride's
Yeah,
really good.
yeah.
Chad Benning's our best player though. Graduate
That's
center.
only because you take classes with him, though.
No, I don't. The only
Oh,
I swear these D1 basketball players live in a different dimension. I have never seen a single one of them on campus. Well, I did. I saw Barry Evans, one of our freshmen. I saw him in the RC Cafe once. But other than that, I haven't seen a single basketball player unless they're on the court. So I'm convinced they just live somewhere else and just come here to play games.
maybe. All right. So, all that being said, we were going to talk a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, about the NFL draft, but I think it's too early. I think we need to focus on the Super Bowl, what just happened in the NFC Championship games, or NFC and AFC Championship games a couple of weeks ago. Um, the other sport that we're going to turn our attention to, and I told you we're eclectic, so anything you want to hear about, just understand that uh, you know if it's pickleball or badminton, neither of those are sports in my opinion, so we probably will not talk much about them. However, when it comes to the Olympics, when that comes around, we will, just because we are that's an Olympic event.
Yeah.
So we will talk about them. However, what we're going to turn our attention to is the MLB. So we're about 2 weeks away. Not even like maybe 10 days, I think now at this point, because I think pitchers and catchers report on the 15th for spring training. Last year was an anomaly as far as the teams that ended up winning their divisions. I think for the most part, um, a lot of the divisions didn't go the way that we thought they were going to. So, Caleb, I'm going to start off with what we think going into with the off-season trades, with the things that have happened. I'm going to start off with the NL Central because you know how I feel about the NL Central, uh, because you and
Yeah.
I are both Cardinal fans. Uh, but I'm thinking, you know, despite a setback last year, I think they're in good position. I mean, Corbin Burns leaves the NL Central from uh, the Milwaukee Brewers to go to Baltimore, I believe. So that's a big deal. Plus, there's a lot of prospects within the Cardinal organization that are going to move up, especially when it comes to bolstering the bullpen. Um, so I think when you have a guy like Sonny Gray uh, that is now uh, signed to the Cardinals, I think their rotation is in a good spot because the issue last year wasn't uh, offensive production. The issue was pitching for the most part for them. I think half their losses could be attributed to uh, a poor bullpen or poor starting pitching in their early rotation. So you still have Lance Lynn, you still have Kyle Gibson. They're a little bit older, but they still can bolster a strong starting rotation. What are your thoughts?
I mean, when it comes to the NL Central, it was kind of overall just kind of bad last year. There really wasn't like
You put the stuff away, right?
I don't think I would point out like a player that really like or a team that really like shine like yeah the Brewers obviously, but once you got past them there were ups and downs through every single team. The Cardinals were mostly downs, and it was probably it was definitely the worst season since I've been keeping up with the Cardinals. I actually stopped watching games last year because I was getting too frustrated, and that's the first time I've actually stopped watching a team, especially one of my teams, play. But I mean, this year I do see a better Cardinals team. I don't know if it's going to be an NL winning or an Central winning team. I could see a wild card team. I do believe we'll be back in the playoffs. Um, but I don't know how far we'll go this year. We do have an older team, so it could be a couple of moves too. Maybe Gibson and Ling go somewhere else. Yeah, we just signed Sonny Gray, but Sonny Gray's played for everybody. So we could trade him away too. I mean, I could see a lot of trades coming from the Cardinals, get a few more prospects in, and honestly, maybe not this season, but next season, definitely shine for the Cardinals.
Well, I wouldn't disagree. I think the Cardinals are in a good spot. I mean, you still have the guys like Arenado, you still have Goldschmidt, you still like Arenado had a down year last year, right? So uh, that's not going to happen. What my concern is whether or not Contreras, who looked like a big pickup for the Cardinals in the offseason last year, um, ended up not panning out in the same fashion that I think they thought he was going to. Part of that was due to injury, right? But offensively, he didn't produce like we thought. Like he's no Yadier Molina, right? Behind the plate either. Um, Not that he's bad. Like he's probably the best option we have. It's either him or Kinzinger, right? So I believe the Cardinals are going to see a turnaround because I think Arenado and Goldsmith's bats come alive. I think our lineup top to bottom offensively is going to be good. Like the only question mark is, does the pitching rotation hold up? Moving on to the NL East. So last year's NL East champions. Hold on, sorry, I got to remember who the NL East champions because they were kind of like, who
The
cares?
Braves.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
That's why I said
I
who
didn't know if
cares
you
because I hate the Braves.
I didn't know if you were kidding or not. I was like, were they not the best team in baseball last year?
Yeah, I know. I don't
Their
like the
entire
Braves.
their
Yeah.
entire starting lineup averaged more than 50. It got more than 50 home runs.
Yes, I'm aware. The truth is, the Braves are probably winning the East this year. They're probably going back to the World Series this year. Well, wait, they were in last year, right?
No,
No, no. Who? Houston's the defending champs, right? Who won it last
wrong
year?
team. Texas did.
Texas won it last year. Ron Texas
Don't
did.
ask me how. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. We're supposed to be nice on this channel, but don't ask me how the Texas Rangers won a championship. But I'm not here to say anything. At least
All
I
right.
think it
So
was Texas. Am
here's
I
what I
wrong?
think. I think that the Braves are the favorite overall to get to the World Series. At the end of the day, that's what I think, right? Um, top to bottom, they're probably the most well-rounded team in the MLB right now. I understand New York fans, the Yankees are going to disagree,
They always will.
uh, but I just think top to bottom, I don't see anybody in the East beating Atlanta.
No, they couldn't last
So
year. They couldn't the year before. And when you talk about most well-rounded team, just saying most well-rounded team is an understatement for what the Braves have there because from like their starting to their bullpen to um their outfield, infield, everything is just so good in Atlanta. I have no clue how they didn't win the World Series. I forgot. I don't know who the Texas Rangers played. Honestly, I kind of stopped paying attention like halfway through the season, but I did watch a little bit of the championship. In Texas taking it. I did watch that game 7, but I forgot who they played against. For some reason, but um, I mean overall, the Braves are probably the best team in the MLB, and they have been for 2 years, and they'll continue to be. So
but your dark horse in the East though, I I wouldn't discount the Marlins, to be honest. I think the Marlins have a little bit of something to say about it, as far as how the East is going to end up. What are your thoughts?
I think every team in the East definitely could be vying for a playoff spot. They were last year. It was really like Braves battle for wild card spot. And I mean, I could see that happening again. The Braves have one of the best pitchers in the league, Sandy Alcantara. Uh, Pretty decent bullpen over there, and some pretty heavy bats too. Jazz was hurt 90% of last season, so I think Chisholm coming back is huge. I mean, he was out for half the year and was still my best fantasy player. So I mean, Chisholm is amazing when he's healthy, and I think he can lead that Marlins team to a pretty decent record this season. When it comes to everyone else, the Mets are always the Mets. They'll always be vying for something. They're never gonna make it anywhere, ever. But they will always be vying for something. And I know we probably have Mets fans listening to this, but So is my teacher's a Met fan too, and I told this right to her face. So, um, really, it's all up to how much those teams want and who's going to make the playoffs. But I do think that there will be a wild card team from the East. I just don't know who it'll be because I believe all four of those other teams could possibly be there.
I can see that. So I'm going to move to now the I'm gonna move on to the NL West. We'll complete the NL circuit here. So when I look at the National League West, um, it immediately goes to the Dodgers. I mean, you pick up who's that guy? He used to play for the Angels. Decided to move across town. Oh yeah, Shohei Ohtani. I mean, you pick up a guy like Shohei Ohtani, and now he's wearing a Dodgers uniform. That's a give me that alone. Um, Not to mention, that you still have Teoscar Hernandez, Gavin Lux, all returning. Still have Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Mookie Betts. I mean, that team, top to bottom, is probably really honestly like if they don't win the World Series, I mean, I think it's gonna come down between them and Atlanta. I would love for the Cardinals to be in the conversation. I don't think they won't be in the conversation. I just don't think they're at the same level. Like when you look top to bottom on the Dodgers lineup, I think they're the best team in baseball. Thoughts?
I am gonna have to disagree with that in the fact that they are an older team. 90% of that team's on the decline. And we saw it last year. I mean, they went nowhere in the playoffs. It was one of the. I mean, they put on not a very good performance once they got to the show. They got to the playoffs and it was pretty hard to watch them play baseball. A team that's really fun to watch play baseball, and I was probably the team I probably kept up with most last year after I stopped with the Cardinals because I was getting too frustrated. The Arizona Diamondbacks are younger than young. Your best pitcher is 27, Zach Gallen. You have Corbin Carroll. I don't know if he won Rookie of the Year, but I know he was. I know he received votes. That team's really young. That team's really good, and that team's flashier than you can imagine. And sometimes just bringing people there to watch fun baseball is just really good. And I think they'll have a lot of fan backing just because of how fun it is to watch them play. Um, and I believe that the Diamondbacks could definitely take the West, if not more.
Okay. Well, that's fair. I don't. I think that's a fair statement. I think you have your winners from each of the divisions, and I do think that your wild card is coming out of the East and the West, respectively. And the truth is, any one of those wild cards is going to be not that far behind um, your division winner in each of those divisions. So I think it's going to be jammed up at the NL and the NL level. I want to look at the AL East now, and of course we're getting into you know, and I understand this is super too early, but um, what I think when you look at the NL East, with the addition of when you look at the addition of um, oh,
Corbin
who's the
Burns.
guy? Corbin Burns. I don't. I think the Orioles are going to repeat. I mean, I know that's hard to say because you've got the Bo Sox, you've got the Yankees, you've got um, Toronto. Wants something to say about it, but I just think that Baltimore is going to be the team to beat in the East. Thoughts?
I mean, yeah, last year
They are.
the funniest thing I was able to see was despite the Twins sitting on top of the AL Central, when you read down the list, it literally went in complete order for all 10 of those teams. That was how good the AL East was last year. I believe, once again, there will be multiple wild cards coming out of the East. You're not just going to see one, probably going to see two, possibly three. I don't believe the Red Sox will be one of those teams. But
No, I don't think so either.
but beyond that, the Orioles, this is their division to lose. They are the AL version of the Diamondbacks. If you want to watch, like, if the MLB were to be scripted and you want fun baseball come World Series time, it would be Orioles versus Diamondbacks. And I mean, those two teams are so young, so good. And I could see them both winning their division, and definitely for the Orioles, and definitely, I mean, the Diamondbacks went on a playoff run last year. The Orioles, not so much. I could see them both going to the World Series, honestly. Now, obviously, the Baltimore is the better team between those two, definitely. If they were, it's a way too early prediction, but I am known to make way too early predictions. And my prediction is Diamondbacks, Orioles, World Series with the Orioles winning, because you can hold me to it. This is on recording. This will be posted on YouTube. You guys can come listen to it in 9 months when October rolls around, 8 months when October rolls around, and you guys can quote me. But maybe neither of these teams will even make the playoffs. But if I'm going with a way, way, way too early prediction, especially with Corbin Burns, Orioles are going to be facing off with the Diamondbacks come the end of October.
Well, I guess we don't even have to listen to the AL Central and the AL West because you've already made your prediction. So, saying that, I'm gonna turn my attention to the AL Central. This is a division I think is the Twins to lose this year. I don't think Chicago has it. Maybe Detroit. Detroit might have something to say about it. But I think that I think the Twins, top to bottom, are going to be better with a healthy lineup. They had a lot of injuries last year, and I think they're going to bounce back this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is the this Twins team is really, really good. I mean, that might be a really bad way of putting it, but it is. Uh, you have one of the best closers in the league. Topped the charts in pitch speed last year. I believe led the AL in saves. I mean, this is a very good Twins team in a very bad division, and you could see reliever of the year going to him. I don't know why I forgot his name. I want to say Duran, but I don't know if that's right. I don't think it's right. I know it starts with a D, but this is this Twins team definitely is the best in the AL Central, and if they perform like they did last year, if you see like Max Kepler playing the way he did, coming like it was almost like another breakout year for Max Kepler last year. Top to bottom, their pitching was really what won them games, which is not a usual statement for the Twins. So I'm kind of glad to see that they were able to do that. But yeah, the Twins are definitely the candidates, the leading candidates for taking home the Central Trophy.
Well, you are right. Is Johan Dohan, who was one of the top closers in the league last year. Um, Here's the thing, though, for the Twins, they got to get to him. They got to get the game into his hands, and that's going to be a struggle. But you know, they were without Buxton for half of last year, right? So you're without a not just defensively, but offensively, what Byron Buxton brings to the table. The big hit for the Twins is going to be the loss of Sonny Gray, right? Leaving to go about 2 states south, hopping the express down 35 to St. Louis, which I'm happy about, and I know that Royals fans are also happy about uh, because they want him out of their division. Um, So I think if you're going to take a wild card out of the Central, I really don't think it's Detroit. A lot of people think it's Detroit. I think it's Kansas City. I think Kansas City is maybe a sleeper team this year. I don't think they're winning the division, but they might sneak in a wild card. You know, they have made they've been very quiet, but quietly working their way up the last couple years, where they've gotten close. They haven't been bottom of the barrel like they were for years in the early 2010s, right? They since the 2020 started, they've slowly worked their way back, where they're at least in the hunt. I think this is their year to make a wild card run. I don't think they're winning the division, but I think the Twins win it, and maybe the Royals make it in as a wild card. Thoughts? Not seeing it with the Royals? I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was muted. I pulled the dad real quick. Um,
Uh,
so, so, I mean, it's hard to take anyone from that division. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with the NL Central, is that though it literally seems like you got the Brewers, you have the Twins, and then you have 8 rebuilding teams. Like, that's how it feels right now, and I hate to say it because I don't like the Twins, and despite my family liking the Twins, I don't like the Twins. And the Cardinals are a team that I just said was not good. But like the Central divisions are just not what they were earlier in the 2000s, 2010s. Um, and it's hard to say anyone else is gonna make it when you have firepower from other divisions that you just don't see. I feel like if the Royals, White Sox, Guardians, Tigers, probably not the Tigers, but any of the other 3 teams can win games against their own division, they could sneak in as a wild card. But I think when you look at being able to play against other divisions, I think that the Central, in both divisions, in both leagues, are outmatched by their 2 counterparts.
okay. Well, that's fair. I mean, that's fair. That's a fair discussion. Uh, let's slide it over to the AL West. Um, so uh, I don't think there's any doubt on this. Like, I got it. I understand. People who are Texas Ranger fans are going to boo me and send me nasty grams, and that's okay. Um, they're not the team to beat in the West. The team to beat in the West is Houston, all day, every day. Um, I mean, you're talking about Verlander, Valdez, Javier, McCullers, Uriquity, just in the rotation, right? All right. Then offensively, you got to deal with Caratini, Abreu, Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, Kyle Tucker. I mean, top to bottom, what's wrong with that team? There's not a weakness in that team, top to bottom. So Houston, I think, hands down wins the West, and I think they win it by a couple touchdowns.
I mean, You say they're the team to beat in the West, and I mean, I could agree with that, but isn't that exactly what Texas did last year? Isn't that exactly what Texas did to make it to the wild card? Now, don't get me wrong, I do believe Houston's going to win, and I kind of just wanted to make this a interesting episode where we weren't agreeing on literally everything, because that's all we've done all episode is agree with each other. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I mean, that is exactly what Texas did in the playoffs last year. They beat the Astros in 7 games. And then went on to win the World Series. So Texas is still a great team. Never thought I'd even in my lifetime say Texas Rangers and World Series in the same sentence, and now I have to because they won it. But Texas, some team from Texas is taking the West. That's straightforward. One of them's gonna win it. I don't know exactly which one. I do believe Houston's a better team, but Texas could come out on top. But one of them's gonna win it, and the AL West Trophy will still go to Texas as it has for the past like 17 years. So not 17, it's more like 5-4. But point is, Texas will rule the NL West this year, AL West this year.
No, I think that's where my point of disagreement is that I think well, I do think the World Series, if Baltimore is going to make it to the World Series out of the East, they're going to have to beat a team from Texas. They got to go down to Texas and beat somebody. It's either going to be Houston or the Rangers. Out of the East, I mean out of the NL, my heart wants to say the Cardinals, but my brain is not agreeing with my heart right now. And the truth is, I think it's going to be Atlanta and the Dodgers fighting for the wild card, or excuse me, fighting for the World Series bid in the NL Championship game or Championship Series. And I think the Dodgers probably come on top. I think we're going to see Dodgers Houston. Um, I hope I'm wrong. I do hope I'm wrong. Of course, if you could just look at lineups and predict, then there would be no reason to play games. That's why we play the games, right? Um, Anything can happen on any given day, and there's 162 games that they have to get through without injury and other setbacks that can derail a team season. So, I think this is going to be one of the more interesting um, years in recent MLB history, especially since the pandemic. I think a lot of the divisions are going to be a lot closer than we expect, but that's how I think it plays out. So,
Yeah,
Mike,
I mean that could easily be the case. I mean, I feel like that was the definition of like what you said could be like. I feel like that's the definition of age gap. No offense, Dad. I'm not calling you old. I'm just calling you older than me.
well, I am
Which I
older than you.
mean,
I'm your dad.
exactly. You're my father, so you have to be. So I mean, um, you took teams that I guess are more like expected to go and are probably like definitely like I guess the older like more seasoned teams. But like when you get to hockey, if you went off of seasoned older teams, the Pittsburgh Penguins would be on top of the league right now. And they
Okay,
are not.
okay. Hockey,
So
hockey, different story because.
so so
But are you telling me the Chicago Blackhawks should be a playoff team just because they added Betsy? Like, no,
no, their second
that
best
team that
player is 31 years old.
that's
I'm
my
just
point.
saying.
See,
But like when
but
I'm thinking of like But like young teams, like you look at like when it does, if you look at like the young teams in all, I feel like it's all sports too. Like younger teams just seem to have that power behind them. I mean, the Timberwolves aren't young necessarily. We have a pretty young bench, and we do have two starters that are pretty young. But
Well, it's
we're
a
on
young
top of the league
core.
right
It's a
now.
young core.
Like, I mean, our biggest player is Ant, and he is in his third or fourth season. I mean, yeah, Cat's not exactly a young player anymore, but Jaden McDaniels is. Conley's older than a fossil, but he's still playing at a pretty decent level. So,
Uh,
I mean, age is,
your defending NBA champs are the Denver Nuggets, and the Denver Nuggets are one of the older teams in the league,
yeah, I mean,
top to bottom.
I feel
Because
like it
that's what
all
experience
comes.
says you. That's old man knowledge right there, son. Old man knowledge.
I feel like in every sport it comes down to how teams use it. Like if you're gonna use, you have to have a super smart coach if you have a young team because they're not gonna have the knowledge of teams, and that's why I feel like that's what I mean. I can't name many managers in the MLB, so I can't tell you who is leading the Diamondbacks or the Orioles or the Dodgers or the Astros, also known as R4 picks. But I feel like it's gonna come down to coaching. When you look at age, and I don't know how we started talking about age. I have ADHD, so that's probably how. But I feel like when it does come down to age, I feel like it comes down to coaching too, and how you can use your intelligence with a young team or let your older players take over if you're a younger, less smart coach.
Well, it all comes down to coaching because it doesn't matter if it's hockey, basketball, baseball, football, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, when it comes to team sports especially, the coach has to have a scheme, the coach has to have a offensive and defensive plan, right? And that plan has to be implemented by the players. And so if you have older players, more experienced players who have been playing in that, yes, it helps because they can help guide. But if not, you have to be a better leader as a coach to be able to, expand that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um, and make sure that you're able to impart your direction and guidance onto those younger players. Um, and that's it's why Sean McVay and your PJ Flex of the world, right? PJ Flex a great example with the Minnesota Gophers, right? They respond. Minnesota Gophers don't recruit football talent. They just don't, right? But nonetheless, they're still in the conversation. They make bowl games every year because PJ Fleck, even if as he turns over players, he imparts his wisdom and knowledge, and they know what they want out of him, what he wants out of them, and how he wants them to play. And that is why, because he knows his opponents that are coming up, right? That's why the Gophers maybe they're not an Ohio State. They're not going to beat an Ohio State because they don't have the recruiting path to do that. But they're going to make a bowl game every year because of his coaching and how he works with his freshman and sophomore players. Even with his red shirts, he makes sure that he spends time with them to develop them for the upcoming season. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I mean, like the Gophers have done. The Gophers are probably the biggest school when it comes to like coaching because what Minnesota like basketball is doing this year is not something I would ever think to see from. I feel like the Big Ten's kind of flipped upside down this year, kind of a little bit when it comes to basketball.
Purdue's still
but
on top.
well, yeah, but like Minnesota is looking at an at-large bid and not necessarily something you would see from them. I mean, right? If Selection Sunday was today, Minnesota would have an at-large bid, as would St. Bonaventure would be close to it too. I'd just like to point that out. St. Bonaventure's never had an at-large bid, but we could.
This
We're
might be
inching
the
towards
year.
it. We're inching towards it. But we're like Minnesota is a perfect example of coaching because you're not going to a Gophers game. If you're going to a Gophers game to watch winning, you're probably going to a hockey game. But basketball's made it work this year, and football's made it work for the past few years. At least making a bowl game, and possibly this year a stint in March for the basketball team. So I mean, that just shows you what coaching can do because neither of those teams do recruit amazing players, but still somehow, just like you said, make it work each year. Basketball, not so much, but this year at least, it's working to a pretty high level.
Well, they're in the mix. I mean, they're still going to have to. The Gophers are going to have to. The Gophers are going to have to win some big games down the stretch. They started off strong, hit a rough patch at the beginning of the Big Ten season, which seems to be the MO for the Gophers, and then they're fighting back at the end of the season. But they've been fighting back a lot harder. Like they just went into Michigan and beat Michigan, not Michigan, sorry, Michigan State.
I was
Big
just about to say
difference.
Michigan's had some pretty big troubles this year when it comes to basketball.
No, but Michigan State. So they went in. They went in and they beat Michigan State. So that was big. I think this weekend they play Iowa, and then they got to go and play Purdue in Purdue's house. Purdue's the number 2 team in the country right now. That's a big deal. But even a loss uh, in a close game against Purdue at Purdue when they're number 2 seed, or number 2 team in the country, will go a long way to ensuring their bid for a March Madness bid. So anyway, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us here on Rud Sports Broadcasting this evening. We appreciate you joining us here. Again, remember, Till Valhalla Project, supporting our veterans with, mental health awareness, mental health treatment options. Um, Not only that, but they have some really cool T-shirts. If you go out and visit them, both Caleb, myself, and Bryce, my other son, the other member of our broadcast team, we all have the motivational shirts, uh, and supporting the Till Valhalla project is going to support um, those veterans that have given so much to this country, with mental health awareness, and uh, you know supporting them in their needs during and post service to our country. Thank you for joining us here on Run Sports Broadcasting, and we will see you next week right here.